Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for this latest episode of Big Brother's Big Archive. My name is Carl Bainbridge, and joining me as ever is my co-host, Mr. Carl Dutton.
Hello, everybody. Apologies for last time's recording snafu where you could hear one of us in one ear and one of us in the other ear. That was because I clicked stereo on my Skype recorder, but I've fixed it now and you should be hearing us out of both ears. So that's good.
Yes, but unfortunately, one person who you won't be hearing, unfortunately, is Mr. Joseph Tilley. Joseph had other pre-arrangements which meant he couldn't record today, but he will be back for our next episode when we'll be starting the so-called golden era of the show with Big Brother 7. But until then, though, we're going to be covering arguably another golden series in today's show, Celebrity Big Brother 13, which took place in January early this year, and arguably is considered one of the greatest celebrity series of them all. Is that a big assumption to make, Carl?
Of them all, that's a big one, but I of the ones I've seen, it's one of the ones I enjoyed the most. It's definitely up there with the one from 2 years ago on Channel 5's standards, and I think it's probably up there with 2006.
It's certainly got to be considered a top tier celebrity series.
Yeah, compared to some of the dregs we've got, yeah.
But I think as well, the thing with Celebrity 13, why I felt the season was so good, was that it was an important season for Channel 5. It's one they need to get right, because I don't know about you, I've always got the suspicion that people sort of look down on the Channel 5 era of the show just because it's on Channel 5. And for them to produce a series which both casuals and critics both really got into, I think it showed a lot of people that Channel 5 could be trusted to make a high quality series.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time, and it's always the celebrity one, because that's where the focus is, that's where the money is, that's where, and obviously it's coming back in kind, because that's obviously working, because that's what people are talking about. So that's been their main success. Now, my focus has always been on the main series, so if they can get the main series to be that popular again, then I'll be impressed. But at least for now, people are aware that this show exists, and maybe it'll make enough fans that they will then come back for summer that weren't there before.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And certainly, I have to say, when you compare Celebrity Big Brother 8 and Big Brother 12 to the Channel 5 show that we have now, there has been a very drastic improvement.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think it's definitely learned its lessons. I mean, I've still got fundamental problems with their version of it, but it's definitely much better than it was. And I think the fact that I've accepted the stuff that I hate at this point, I can see past it and just enjoy the show for what it is, not for what it isn't.
Yeah, I'm the same with that. There are still a lot of grievances that I have, and we'll sort of bring them up later on in the show. But we're going to go back to Celebrity 13. Were you as infused with this series when it came to launch night and you saw that cast of 12? Did you have the feeling this was going to be a good one?
I had really dropped out of I mean, obviously I did these shows, but I had stopped watching a lot of the series and stuff like that, like I had been doing in the past, as other things as things do in life, other things kind of took over, and I really didn't think about the series. And then it was like, okay, it's back, it's coming on, I'll check it out, and then I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I was. And then they did that whole launch night, and there was a few faces that I recognised, some ones I really recognised, and then but mostly, as it tends to be the case with these, is I enjoy it more for the personalities rather than, because I mean, I barely recognise anybody on these shows, so it's whether I think that it's going to be fun. And as soon as I saw some of the reactions to the handcuffing twist, and I saw what Liz was like, I was like, okay, this could be fun.
And you just mentioned there with the cast. In my opinion, this has to be up there as one of the best casts, in my opinion. I think arguably Sam was probably the only dud, but everybody else, in my opinion, brought something to the show and served the purpose that they were intended to. Because not only did we have like Jim Davidson and Louisa, who obviously filled their role of being the controversy magnets that they were outside, but then you had people like Liz Jones, as you mentioned, or someone like Lionel Blair, who were basically filler housemates, but still developed into these big, quirky personalities. and it all came together so well, in my opinion.
I tell you why it worked is because these were an argumentative, egotistical bunch of people, and it is definitely, without a doubt, the most argumentative series since, I'd say, probably 2006, where literally there was a fight every day, and it was never some. Obviously, later on, the grudges kind of came to light, but it was never always with the same people either. It's like every day you'd tune in to see the new matchup and be like it'd come up on YouTube, and be like, those two are fighting. What over? You know, and then you'd find out it was some stupid comment about sexism or
or dressing rooms.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier when you were doing your little monologue there, Karl, the handcuff twist. Now, every celebrity series or every civilian series likes to do their own launch night twist, and this year it was handcuffing them. So we had 6 pairs, 12 people each. Did you think that was a good twist? Did you think it worked?
Yes. By the way, folks, you should be used to be talking in monologue by now. That's what I do on these things. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it'd be more would be done with it than was. It was over in like 3 days. But I guess that's not only the thing for Channel 5, but also the thing for the celebrity series in general, is they don't really stick to these twists. Because I think some of the people who they are would have been like, well, you've already paid me, I'm not doing this crap, and walk out. So I think that's why they're a bit on edge with them. One thing I will bring up, though, is during the house tour, they were like, oh, there's a jail. That's going to be used, Scott. I don't remember the jail being used once.
But they've done that a lot with Big Brother, though. I remember with Big Brother 8, there was supposed to be all these secret rooms which are going to be revealed over the course, and don't step on the target, that sort of thing. And nothing ever came of that.
But she brought attention to it, and then later on they were breaking the rules rampantly. I guess it's because it got converted into the other, whatever it was, sex club and whatever else they were doing.
Please don't bring up the sex club.
Oh, we're going to have to, aren't we?
We're going to have to, yeah. But I'm similar to you with the handcuff twist. I thought it was a good concept. It was almost Big Brother America-like in having to pair people up. But again, they didn't do enough with it. And obviously, from what happened with Lee and Katie, which we'll come to later, they obviously panicked a bit when they saw what the result was going to be of them doing the handcuffing. Because they obviously didn't think it through.
Well, they did what never happens. This show and these versions of the shows always try and pair people together to try and get them together, and it never works because they're just not doing that. They know they're too wise to the show, or that they've just done it on face value. I don't know whether you watched the last series of the Australian one. They did the whole wedding twist thing that they had on the UK version a couple of years ago. Yeah, that never works. Mario and what's her face. Yeah, but this time it actually worked. So credit to them. That's what I'll say.
Credit to them.
It caused lasting friendships and resulted in the love triangle. So there we go, success. It worked.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that's the first thing we're going to be discussing. We finished launch night, and one of the first big storylines begins to develop, which is Lee, Casey, and Jasmine. What are your opinions on that?
The whole thing?
Mainly those early stages, especially when it was Lee and Casey, because really Jasmine sort of started to come into it, probably with the UFO task.
Oh, yeah, she definitely came somewhere. The thing here was that earlier on, it was like, okay, this could be, the cute couple of the series. I'm not against showmances, and I was just like, okay, fair enough. If this is going to be the babyface couple of the show, it's going to be the Preston and Chantel of this year, and it was just kind of nice and innocent. And in the background there was threesomes in the hot tub going on, and it seemed like it was going to be Dappy and Jasmine and Louisa who were going to be causing all that, and Lee was away on the other side in this sort of innocence. I didn't ever really see those two worlds mixing, and then I guess Lee decided he wanted to get it.
Which really surprised me, because you mentioned there that Lee coming into the show was the golden boy. I remember I was live blogging on Facebook as the sleep was happening, as the launch night was happening, and I just said, get all your money on Lee, he's just going to absolutely walk it.
Oh, if that couple had stayed, absolutely, it would have been down to those two.
But yeah, Lee and Casey, I was a bit like you. I felt that it could have gone somewhere, it could have been sweet and pleasant. But as we saw later on, though, I think one of the big problems was that Lee's immaturity over the situation and that sort of brattishness. That's one of the big things that really caused that relationship to go downhill. But also his popularity with the house, within the house and outside the house, to go downhill as well.
Yeah, it's amazing when this happens, because it doesn't usually happen, because people who have big fan bases go in there and don't do much because they don't want to upset anyone. In fact, they're looking probably to revitalize their career. Whereas, Lee is probably one of the only people who went in there. Everybody loved him. Everybody thought of him as this nice guy, and he was for the first couple of days, and then just proceeded to live up to his press reputation in every way, shape, and form.
Well, wasn't one of the rumours that Duncan James actually told Lee, don't do the show because you're only going to come out of it bad?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can say what you want to say about editing and things like that, and there's certainly legitimacy to those arguments. However, if you do those things, and you are filmed doing those things, you can't then say it was editing, because you did it.
Yes, and that's a big thing we'll come on to with Lee, in that blame game that he always used to throw about, especially once we get to the bolt hole, which we'll come to in just a second. But another person who couldn't blame editing for what he said was Evander Holyfield and his homophobic comments.
Oh God, he wasn't there, was he? He was in the background. He had that thing with Louisa on the first night, and then he was just kind of there. Then occasionally he'd pop his head up and say some comment that would piss a housemate or the public off. Like he popped up with the horse comment to Liz. Where did that come from? And then he comes out, he's obviously the typical American fundamentalist Christian views. Now I will say this, I did have the reaction when I watched it. What he said was wrong, absolutely, but he should not have been punished for it.
I agree. I definitely agree there. And I know the show does have a big gay fan base. I want to make it clear we don't tolerate Evander's comments.
Absolutely not, no.
But the show is designed to be an open forum to allow people to express their views.
Yeah, I mean, I had this rant last time, didn't I?
Yes.
It's a case of, to me, fair enough. If you want to judge them on what they're doing, fair enough. But I don't think you can give them a warning if they are legitimately being abusive to a person or a group. He was just expressing his opinion, and you can't punish somebody for their opinion.
And also I feel as well is that the show should allow the public themselves to judge things in the way that they want to. If they want to condemn Evander as being homophobic, then do so. Don't spell it out for the audience by punishing him and giving
calling attention to it. In a way, maybe some of these comments would be offhanded comments. People wouldn't even pay attention to them, other than maybe some Ofcom arseholes. And then because they call him up about it, then it becomes a thing.
And it makes me think as well with Channel 5 do. Channel 5 deliberately create all these big controversies themselves to try and get the tabloid interest and say Big Brother's at it again.
Well, it worked, didn't it? But I mean, the other thing is, I know people out there are saying, well, what about Connor? Okay, Connor was threatening to physically harm, well, not threatening, but he was joking about physically harming another housemate. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, Connor should have been thrown out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's for a completely different podcast. But yeah, so Evander gets warned by the public, probably rightly so. And then, as we'll mention later, there's other comments that he makes, which we'll bring up. But between them, we have the UFO task, a fun, light-hearted shopping task, the return of the shock suits, Quell Supreme. If anything, that's one of the big gripes I do have about the Channel 5 era, is that when in doubt, they always seem to rely on the same sort of twists and the same sort of tasks.
God, yes. The bolt hole will just be the first one, Dan. We'll get to that when we get to that, but they not only do they beat that dead horse, they whip that dead horse, and they continue to whip that dead horse until there is just horse meat for your Tesco ready meals.
I was just going to say that, In a way, it almost reminds me a bit of Big Brother America, because if you notice on Big Brother America, they do the same tasks every year, but they just redecorate.
I like the same times as well, yeah.
At the same time, even the housemates over there know when the tasks.
It's like, it's week 3, we're going to have that kind of twist. It's week 7, we're going to have that bloody robot come in. Yeah. If they want to be more like America and have a formula, then go ahead. We'll get more to that when we get to the ball.
Yeah. But as long as it doesn't harm the show, and in my opinion, the UFO task didn't. It was still fun, lighthearted.
Oh god, the UFO task accidentally ended up making the show. But it was the shock suits aren't a problem for me because it's a stupid thing. It's overused, but so is the pause play thing that they did later on. But at the end of the day, it's not really affecting the game, if you want to call it that. It's not really affecting the show as a whole. It's not a big twist like the bedsit.
But as we mentioned just earlier on, there was one big thing to come out of the UFO task, and that was when Lee decided to shack up with Jasmine.
Yeah, wow. Literally, and I know it was edited to make it. I will defend Lee on this. It was edited so that it was literally minutes afterwards on the show, where it's probably hours. But still, Lee, you can't blame editing for this one, buddy. You literally, what's Casey said to you? Do you want to carry on? During that conversation where you were like, "Oh, I'm worried about getting serious," you said yes, okay, and kissed her. Then went into the UFO. And completely got off with Jasmine. Not only did you get off with Jasmine, you discovered your tap trick going into there. Now, since they did it loads of times since, let's just say that that's all that happened in there, except for the fact that then later on Jasmine said that isn't all that happened in there, and of course Jim Davidson spoke about the egg whisking. So yeah. Let's just say everything but probably happened.
Do you think that one of the reasons for Lee's behaviour was possibly the fact that a little bit of arrogance on his part, the sort of thought of, I'm Lee Ryan, I can do what I want, and nobody will turn the nose up at it?
I don't think he was thinking. I think he was thinking again with a completely different head. I think at the end of the day, he was shacked Casey. He felt, and then started to realise that would become a showman's thing, but realised he fancied Jasmine more, so he backed off of the Casey thing, but didn't want to hurt her feelings, so he kept on doing it. But then still really wanted to get with Jasmine, so he did, and didn't really see a problem in that, because I think he saw the Casey thing as, a little. I don't know. It was weird. He said one thing, but I'll say this: the night before that happened, Lee didn't he get his underwear off in the bed, and she was like, "Oh no," and go to the bathroom and all this, and it was like, so wait a second. She said no, and then the next night with somebody else. Bit suspicious.
But of course, Lee and Casey were three of the pairs that went up for evictions, or so we were to believe. It was them, Louisa and Evander, and I believe Jim and Linda were the other pair.
Yeah. Jeez, thank God that didn't happen, huh?
Thank God that didn't happen. I was going to say that. You were talking about people shacking up.
Well, I don't know about that. I think somebody would have probably been dead.
Yeah. But for me, though, it showed up how the handcuff twist hadn't really been thought through, because we were either going to lose one of the big pairs there. We were either going to lose our big star power signing, Jim, our big publicity stunt, Evander, or the big storyline of the series, Lee and Casey. And I even thought that. I thought, how are production going to get out of this one? Their answer, bring in the secret room again.
Why don't you go? Because I rant way too much. Why don't you go first?
Now, I understand why production did it, and I think from a production point of view, I think the right choice was made, because Lee and Casey was the big storyline of that point. So I understand from that point of view. But I also think as well, you've backed yourself into the corner. In some cases, you just have to grit your teeth and bear it, and be willing to lose two big characters. And in a way as well, I think that had you done it with Lee, and Lee gone that week, I think that fall of Lee's storyline, that would have been a great week one storyline for me, had you gone that week. The other thing I noticed with that eviction, though, was the the eviction crowd's reaction. They really turned against Lee big time in a way which it took me by surprise. And I think possibly one of the reasons for that, and I'll put it to you, Karl, one of the reasons for that was because it was Lee Ryan, because it was this beloved sweetheart figure that all the tweens had loved when they were kids. And to see him acting like a scumbag, it hurt them more than it would have done a civilian member of the public.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think, obviously, the fact that the 80%, 90% of the viewing public are female. So I think that has a huge part to do with it. I think it's just, they took her side, very obviously. If you're going to rip something off, rip off the part that was good about it, in that I know you don't have the money for 2 doors, but when you had 2 doors, that meant that you could have people go to this secret room without going outside first, so they wouldn't get that reaction from the crowd, so they wouldn't be able to understand. If they hadn't gone out to that reaction, I mean, granted they heard the chants and stuff, who knows what was shouted to either of them when they were out there that caused their behaviour to change when they went back in? What signs did they see? You know what I mean?
In a way, though, I think I was a bit similar to you. I felt if they do this, if they take Lee out and put him back in, he's going to completely change his behaviour, he's going to tone it down, and he's just going to ruin that big, obnoxious dick character that was being shown to us. In a strange way, though, the opposite happened. Lee thought the crowd were in on it and continued to ham up his behaviour because he thought that was what the public were wanting. He took it as a sign of exception rather than a negative context.
I think later on he definitely gave up, though, as well. But I think the thing with him, to me, yes, but that could have happened just from the chance outside. I don't think he needed to go out there and actually, I don't know. I'm just a purist. I don't like the idea of them going outside and then going back.
Oh, I don't like it either.
But on the whole Bolthoff thing in general, I tried to count it. In the last 2 years, I think every single series has had one. And in fact, the last Celebrity one had 2.
This one has 2, because if we think Husky's task as well.
Yeah. So, in the last 2 years, we probably had, 8 different versions of the bedsit. This was a task that was done once by Channel 4 and was legendary, and now, dear God, they're gonna that was successful once. We are gonna do it and do it and do it and make it again, because we like to see people bitching at each other. Eventually the people that go in will, Dan last year was just the start. You wait till this year now. Like, they're going to be looking to the camera going, "Hi, how you doing, evicted housemates?" So is this double eviction? Everybody will know that's what's going on.
I understand why production did it, but I don't agree with it either.
Well, how about put a new twist on it? How about making it not that bit? How about make it so they don't watch them? How about you make it so that they know that they're being voted into there, and they know that the public are voting for them to go in there, and what they're voting for is to just put them in a room that the other house can't interact with, and they have to stay in that room and interact with each other. That's it.
Do you think that in case he would have won that vote, had it have been a positive vote?
I think the vote was to see them in that room after Lee found out how much of a dick he'd been, and now the case he turned against him. I think they wanted to see the fight, so I think it would have always happened, and they would have always been voting there. In the same way as to why, oh God, I forgot his name already. Guy got kicked out last year. Hazel and Daly. Yeah, same reason that was.
I can't blame you for forgetting Daly. Nobody wants to remember him. Not a very nice housemate at all. And speaking of not a very nice housemate, we come to Evander, who's offended the gay community, and then offends the animal-loving community. His horse-punching comments.
Oh, it did give... Liz went in and she was nuts, and you could see that she was nuts, but then she just kind of disappeared into the background and sort of became wallpaper. And again, this was the start of... her head popped up as Evander's popped up, just for them to have this classic moment. You started to see, wow, she's got something to work with. She can actually be quite witty. Just the way that she is with everything, and he was obviously doing it to get a rise out of her. She's there talking about how she about animals all the time. I mean, it was over the top. When they had that dog in the task, and she was like, "Oh no, it's going to be hurt." What, from running around the garden? Ugh.
I have to admit, I am probably one of the biggest Liz fans on the internet, I have to be honest.
I know. I especially later on, she was amazing, but I just think, yeah, I enjoy her as a person. I enjoy her as entertainment. I wouldn't want to meet her as a person.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe her reaction to Evander and the way that she called him out was arguably one of the reasons why she ended up surviving that week?
I don't know how many fans Liz had. Not until later on. But so I don't think it was that. I think people were just like, it was vote to save, because they would do that for the celebrity series because they want more of your money. So it's just he hadn't done anything. The British public didn't know him that well, and it was just like more people deserved votes.
But we actually brought up that eviction, and I believe it was Jim, Liz, Louisa, and Evander who were up that week. Jim and Liz get saved first. Now, interestingly, production for this eviction didn't choose to do it the usual lowest votes goes home. Instead, they made Lee and Casey choose who to evict between Louisa and Evander. Do you think the production did that because they knew that them two would pick Louisa to stay?
Yes. And I also think it was another one of those, oh, look, we're not doing the bed sit, it's got a twist on the end.
Because I always found that quite interesting, because my personal belief was that Evander got more votes than Louisa. But because Louisa was the big controversy magnet and Evander was offending everybody and not being particularly entertaining at the same time, they just thought, we need to get shot of him, and created this twist to make sure he went home.
Yeah. I think he was always doomed against those people who had, at that point, just dominated the show, though.
And that brings us on to Evander Holyfield, our first evictee, and our opinions of him. Because personally, I actually wrote this down when I did my launch night blog. It says, look, Evander's not going to be entertaining. His aim is to be the big star power signing that's going to make casual fans sit up, think, oh my god, how the hell did he manage to get him, and tune in as a result. And in that regard, you can make the argument he sort of served his purpose as a housemate. He was never going to be exciting. He was never going to be hogging all the airtime. He was just star power.
Yeah, he was the draw of the show. There's two types with these. There's the big stars of, generally with the Americans. There's the ones who are really entertaining, who we've never heard of, and then there's the big stars who do nothing. And that's the same with every big star that ever goes in there. They've got too much to lose. They wouldn't do anything, and in general, they're older and kind of boring guys, except when they're pissing people off and saying their comments that are getting the world riled up.
I think it made E over in America Evander's homophobic comments.
Right, really? Well, it did did its job then.
It did its job, so you have to credit him for that. But in other aspects, though, very underwhelming, very unlikable, dull as dishwater, and probably for me the biggest gripe with Evander, a complete lack of interest in the whole show concept.
Well, he was there for a payday, wasn't he? He didn't even know what it was. I actually didn't even watch his interview.
That dull.
Yeah, I just didn't care. I'm not gonna lie.
But I can't blame you, and to be honest, you didn't really miss much. Very, very dull, very uninteresting. I think I'm right in saying, this is just a rumour that I always heard, was that Evander signed up for the show thinking that it was the British branch of Big Brothers, which was like a children's charity over in America. What? And he signed up for that. There was reportedly that a comment he made where he asked, when are we going to leave the house? I want to go shopping.
So, he was like, okay, if this is true, he went over there expecting this charity show, he's like, yeah, and then he gets onto the stage, and at no point has anybody mentioned to him what the concept of this show is, and then he gets strapped to somebody and thrown in there, and his whole thing is he's then got to, so he went in there clueless.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he's just there sitting in the house going, so when do we go out shopping? They're like, no. I
will say, though, that sort of relationship, in inverted commas, he had with Louisa, that was good. That was good fun, that. Because we had Louisa there, who's obviously knew about the show, very enthusiastic, very brash about the whole experience, having to relate and try and create communication with Evander, who's very...
Yeah, I didn't take... when she went in, I was like, oh, Louisa, who's that? And then that first night when she made that, she just had the balls to just say, so do you not like me or what? It was like, well, okay, she's going to be good.
For me, one of the moments that symbolised Evander's time in the house, in my opinion, was when Lee and Katie made the decision to evict Evander. They were sent back into the house, and everybody was really happy to see them again. Louise was obviously saying her thank yous, all that hysteria going on. And whilst all that's happening, Evander's just walking up the stairs, saying his goodbyes, and getting no response whatsoever.
Yeah, he was there to be. I think Jim was into him because of who he was, but other than that,
and he didn't even turn up for the finale. It just shows how uninterested he was in the whole show, in my opinion. But we move on from Evander, thankfully, and we come to the task for all ages.
Oh boy!
Yes, half the house, if we remember, half of the house was split into two halves. One of them, which had to do a U-rated show, which is very kid-friendly, very nice, very cheery, as you expect. And the other part, which everybody remembers, the 18-plus room, where they had to do an X-rated show, which got very, very uneasy to watch. Part of it is honestly one of the funniest tasks I've ever seen, and part of it is honestly the most cringeworthy Galloway pretending to be a cat, cringeworthily bad.
Well, there was that a little bit with Lionel, but other than that, I'd say it was the most part a lot better because it was young, good-looking people, so that helped. Yeah, this was like I heard it brought it up, but I remember after that first week being like, "Holy crap!" Like, what has been going on in there? The first few nights they'd had arguments. They were already kissing each other and having spin the bottle in the hot tub. It was like, what is going on? So then you take that group who Louisa is a self-confessed former sex maniac. You got Jasmine who got her tits out on the first night. You got Lee who's just up for anything and is getting with two people. And add just that to the mix, and we got what we got. What did you expect?
Just some of the imagery though was just absolutely it scars the mind. I mean, Lionel Blair dressed in leather, asking the girls to suck his dick. Jasmine screaming to Lee that she loved his boner.
And later on, he was like, "Oh, I regret it so much." He regretted nothing.
He was loving it.
He was when he was out there. You know who he looked like? If anybody's ever seen Metal Apocalypse, whatever it's called, the clown in that. in the cop outfit, that's exactly what he looked like. But yeah, it was the contrast when they'd cut back to the other room and they were all so into the. Oh boy, say what you want about Lee, Jasmine, and Louisa. They made this show and they made this moment because they were sex mad young people and they made this what it was, and then the others just joined in.
Mind you, though, there were some aspects about the U-rated room which were pretty dodgy in themselves. I remember the big brother coming across the room in the U-rated room saying how Mr. Monkey had been a naughty boy and needed spanking.
I think it was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek like that. It was like euphemisms and...
Yeah. And of course there was Jim's Frogs comments as well that didn't really get touched on, but I found that a bit dodgy.
What did he say?
Well, the big brother asked them to do their best frog impression, and everybody else starts going ribbit, ribbit, ribbit as you do. Jim goes, "Welcome to the big brother half."
That's Jim. You know, that's Jim Davidson. That's his.
That's Jim's
you know, he's a comedian from the 70s.
Just going back to the 18 rated room though, one of the things I always found quite funny though was if you ever read any of the Daily Star before the start of any Big Brother series, it'd always talk about Big Bro kinky sex den. And everyone would always just brush it off, it's never going to happen. I never thought they'd actually go through with it.
Not only did I thought they'd go through with it, I never thought that headline would actually be true, but somehow it was for this series.
But you're right, Louisa, Jasmine and Lee, they made that task. And Louisa played her part in making the next moment we're going to be talking about, which was the most annoying room in the world.
This was absolutely brilliant. It was every task. It was like they delivered in some parts, but then the cast just hit that home run. And Louisa was just like, I'm not having this. I'm climbing over the fence. She's over there, like, get down now. She's like, no, do you want some chocolate as well? Do you want some champagne? And then Lionel with the getting the phone call and telling them to fuck off. It was, everything about it was amazing. It was, oh man. That was one of the funniest episodes of the show.
Absolutely fantastic. But also as well, the thing was, that was a pretty original task by Channel 5 standards. It shows that when you freshen it up and you do something different, you can get better results.
Yeah.
If they'd done most of the Lying Room about 20 or 30 times, I don't think people would have had the same impact.
Exactly, yeah. And if you're going to bring one back, how about that box task? That was amazing.
Bring that
back. That's a cheap task you can do. No copyright.
But again, the box task, it's a task which the housemates made brilliant, in the same way Louise and Lionel made the annoying room.
Oh my god, this lot in a box, that would have been fun. I'm not gonna lie. Jim and Linda would have been arguing. Lee probably would have done something that he usually gets up to in the bathroom.
Dappy and Louisa.
Yeah, oh good lord.
And of course as well, Louisa and Lionel's antics in the most annoying room created that great argument between the two once they got out.
Yeah.
I thought it brought out a really bad side of Lionel. I felt that the hypocrisy that Lionel showed over that, and in general over the course of the series, I think it became a great character trait of him. But
yeah, I mean, the problem was everybody loves him because he's Lionel Blair and he was providing such entertainment. And then he came across as very sort of like, he was willing to stand there and cheer Louisa on, but as soon as she came out, it was like, oh, she broke the rules. It was her fault. She did it all. I can see why she's napped.
Yes.
Louisa was such a great housemate. She almost, by this point, and especially going forward, she had obtained that Nikki Graham-esque status where she's a bitch, okay, but she's so entertaining that you're just like, I don't care that I don't all the time or half the time like her as a human being. When she gets going, it is amazing, and I wanted to stay in for that reason. So she completely threw up the handle and went too far, as she does, but that's what made it so much better. And then it was the fact that he then rose to it. He believed he was in the right.
Am I your boss? Which is just one of those great Big Brother quotes for me.
Yeah, it was. Oh my god, it was. Who would have thought it? Who would have thought that you're going to see Lionel Blair there arguing, red faced, in Louisa's face? It was, again, classic. It was just like, holy crap. And again, yeah, at this point, you will realise that Lionel was certainly holding his own, but Louisa, early on you thought Jasmine was going to be the star, but at this point It's like, no, Louisa's the star of this show. Jasmine could go.
Louisa was amazing, but it took a long time though for the audience to get Louisa, in my opinion, because she was pretty much nearly every week, and during those early evictions, she was very nearly at the bottom 2, bottom 3 of the votes. I think she got less votes than Evander in week 1.
As soon as it started getting later on, and how entertaining she'd been, of course, with it being vote to save, all the hardcore fans got behind her, and that's what kept her in.
She would have been gone week 1 if it had been vote to evict.
Oh god, yeah.
And in my opinion, that's just one of the examples that I use of why you need vote to save on a show like this.
Yeah, we wouldn't have got any of this. Evander would have still been in there till the end if we'd vote to evict.
But we're going to go to our next eviction, and it's Jasmine, Jim, Liz, and Louisa who are nominated again. Jim, of course, survives, and then we end up losing Jasmine. And now, Jasmine for me is a bit of a strange one because there's a lot of aspects on paper with Jasmine that should have made her amazing. And in some regards, she did deliver. She was brash, she was sexually charged. In some ways, she was quite likeable. But at the same time, I could never warm to her. If you compare it to someone like Carissa and Christina or a Courtney Stodden, that sort of unknown American model, I really engaged and related to them and found them fantastic housemates. And Jasmine was, for the large part, but there was something quite cold about her, in my opinion.
Yeah, she provided good. She was a good catalyst. I mean, early on she was good that first night, obviously, but then she was the catalyst to cause other stuff to happen. She wasn't necessarily the stuff that's happening that was the entertainment itself. And again, by that point later on, others had stepped up. Louisa had become the star of that twosome. Lionel had stepped up. Jim and Linda were in full swing. At that point, she had become almost afterthought.
Yeah, I felt by the time she'd left the show, her storyline was over, in my opinion. And it didn't feel as upset to lose her as I would have done if she got in week 1.
And it caused and the next step of that just destruction of Lee, where it's like, oh, don't now go back. Oh, he's going back, and oh my god, Casey is actually going for it. Oh, this, I don't know. I don't know whether he's just self-destructive or whether he just is a player. I don't know.
Personally, I think it's Lee's ego, but we'll come back to that once we get to his eviction. But the other great thing I loved about Jasmine, though, was that Jasmine was told by Emma she had the opportunity to save 2 housemates from eviction, make them immune. And I love the fact that production obviously did this to try and save Louisa and Lee, because they were the 2 big signs at that point. And instead, Jasmine decides to completely troll the audience and save Casey and Linda.
Yeah.
And the look of Emma's face when Jasmine said that, just absolutely amazing for me.
It was like, did you understand the question? Like, yeah, like that was a what the fuck moment. Like, okay, because I want them to come out, because I want them out. So I'm going to vote out. No, I want them to, what was it? I want them to stay in there, and I want everybody else who I like out. It's not how the show works, dear. Okay.
That was fantastic. I think that was just Jasmine trolling the producers, to be honest.
Yeah, probably.
One of the things I loved about that as well was that it arguably almost set off Linda's storyline as well. Because now that Linda was immune from eviction, she started to almost take the role of alpha villainess in the show. Which brings us on to her feud with Jim, which has sort of been simmering during those first few weeks, but it really blew up after Jasmine's eviction.
Yeah, this sort of thing between those, I know it had a history. It obviously came up with when he brought up the freaking dressing room thing, which he completely overreacted about. I know it had to do with a dead husband. He never mentioned her dead husband, though. But yeah, that was an off-colour comment he shouldn't have made. Yes, there is a history. Yes, but dear God, love, get over it. He didn't kill somebody. He didn't ruin your life. He got into an argument with your husband who just so happens to now be dead. Okay? It's really sad that he is, but you can't blame a guy who you had an argument with 20 or 30 years ago. And it just got to the point where, yes, Jim was being a grumpy arsehole, but at the same time, she was just being vindictive and doing everything she could to alienate him from the group and get everybody on her side, and in doing so exposed herself as being the super bitch to him, and it won him the show because he went from being this sexist old guy to being a victim, because he was. She was just on a rampage to get him hated, and it completely backfired because she was so over the top with it.
You couldn't have said it better. That was pretty much exactly what I was going to say about Linda as well. I just felt that Jim's stature at that point, I mean, Jim was pretty much a 50-1 outsider by the start of the show, and he climbed up a little bit, but there was still a long shot on him winning. Linda did more for him winning that show than anything. And I know people on Digital Spy, this is Big Brother, etc., like to try and paint it out that they loved Jim because he was keeping it real. He was this hilarious, laugh-a-minute figure. In my opinion, he only won because of Linda.
Yeah. It's the same thing as what happened with Denise.
And I felt with Denise, I felt Denise was always a contender to win, in my opinion. But it was Panskate that pushed her over the edge.
Yeah.
I think even without Panskate, Denise would probably finish in the top 2.
Yeah. I think it was a combination, and obviously not to spoil the end, but I think it was a combination of the Michael Barrymore effect, where it's this guy from the 80s who's had bad press. You want to see him have that comeback and he's a great guy now. So thank God he's come out the other side, and it's his redemption. It's a combination of that, and with the whole him being the victim, again, this series has a lot of comparisons to that 2006 one, because Michael's moment of winning he didn't win, but his moment of coming second was when
Galloway.
was Galloway, because of how Galloway was being to him. So
you just mentioned in there the redemption arc with Jim. Why do you think the production specifically chose to tell that story and to make it Jim's redemption arc, when arguably the easiest story would have been proud, strong feminist women Louisa and Linda take down evil sexist bully?
I don't think they went to that. I think that just happened. I think that was just the public perception. I think everybody wanted that to happen, so it happened. It was something, thank God, that organically came from the show rather than being forced by the producers.
Personally, I think that a lot of Jim's more negative qualities were hidden away, but I do think Linda did give him a big hand.
I think they showed him being, they showed that comment that he made. They showed him when he was just being ridiculous over the whole bed situation, is going outside. They showed his bad points, They showed him saying ridiculous comments about how women should know how to cook and stuff. It's not like they didn't show this stuff. Now, did he maybe say some stuff at the end that they didn't show? Who knows? But they did show this stuff. I hate to defend this production, but I don't think it's as slanted as some people think it is.
But away from Linda and Jim, other interesting aspects of that week was the culmination of that sort of Louisa and Dappy feud. If you remember, in the early days of the show, they had got into a massive argument, in which Dappy threatened to take on Louisa in an IQ test. Production called his bluff, got them into the IQ test. Louisa scored 69 on her score, which no surprise there, considering Louisa's 69. You know the joke there. Dappy ended up scoring 8. And I just thought, what a great end to that story there. Just Dappy's bluff being called.
And he was like, he went to the diary room and says, I'm going to leave, because some of his lines, I cannot produce a top-selling album if I'm stupid. Buddy, that 90% of the people who produce top-selling albums are really stupid. It didn't even make sense, any of the words coming out of his mouth. In that argument, none of this, he says, you're stupid. Well, I'm not stupid. Well, I'll beat you in an IQ test. I don't know book smarts, but I'm street smart because I know how to make an album. And I was like, what? And the whole argument was caused over him being called sexist when he was being sexist, because he sided with Jim over a sexist remark. And then, like, so stupid. I mean, obviously, the two sides to every story. It takes two to tango. Louisa, obviously, like with the other arguments she had, she went for that one. But yeah, the entertainment was seeing Dappy come out with lines. You were just like, what? That okay? You're gonna leave because you think that you will lose fans because you are stupid. Okay. Well,
on a show that takes pride in glorifying stupidity as well.
Yeah, and in a world where One Direction is the top-selling frickin' album, okay.
Am I right in saying he threatened production, said, "Please do not show that"?
Do not show. Yeah, that we had that. We've had that a few times. Don't show that, or I will walk.
I'll get my lawyer.
Yeah,
that's another one which they threw out.
I hate to tell you this, buddy, but when you went in that house, you probably signed a contract that says that they can show anything they want. So, sorry.
We'll move on to the next eviction. Everybody bar Linda and Casey were up that week. Jim obviously got saved first of all, and we ended up losing Lionel Blair, which it didn't surprise me. Usually in an all-up vote to save, the eviction results surprised me, but a lot of people did have Lionel going first. But I think it was a real shame as well, because I loved Lionel as a character, and I think that maybe, yes, he was stroppy, yes, he was a bit diva-ish, and I think that a lot of people who saw Lionel as this national treasure was a bit disappointed in him for that. But if you knew that, I knew Lionel was a bit of a diva. When you knew that, it just made his character more fantastic for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because as well, there's always been this sort of grumpy old man character type, which is usually in a celebrity series. And most of the time, I just think they're all grumps and I never liked them. Bruce Jones being a good example of that. Lionel, though, he played the grumpy old man, but because he had this theatrical, diva-ish quality, it just made him more entertaining for me.
He was definitely the best old person they've ever had in there, and he was the oldest as well. You know, he was 80 odd. I couldn't believe it when I heard how old he was, and he was in there. He was going at him. He was arguing. He was up for it. He really went to that show and was a great housemate despite being that old.
And definitely, I mean, if you compare Lionel to someone like Ken Russell, God bless his soul, who weren't really active as much as what Lionel was. Lionel was just such a good step.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Liz surviving those first few evictions, because don't get me wrong, I am a big Liz fan and I know she has a bit of a cult fan base on the internet forums, but I never got the impression she survived those first few votes based on her own merits. Personally, I think what happened was that when the vote freezing started happening, and Liz ended up inevitably in the bottom 3 or 4 with a group of divisive housemates, people just blindly started to block vote Liz to make sure that someone they didn't like went home.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it worked for the benefit of the show, because I think that Liz won over a lot of people, and I think by the end of the series a lot of the casual viewers got Liz. But where did you stand on that, Karl? What did you think of Liz surviving those first few votes?
First thing I said when Jasmine left was that was why Jasmine left. The voters were voting for Liz because the way that they do it now with the kind of elimination style opens it up for that. So when it came down to the two in the stupid people's minds, the two bitch girls and Liz, of course everybody's going to block vote Liz so that either Jasmine or Louisa goes, and that's what happened. And that continued to happen throughout the show, where you could tell that they were voting for Liz to get rid of the other person she was against. And if you're going to do those frozen vote thing, that's what's going to happen.
I agree. I've never liked vote freezing, and this basically summed up the reasons why. I think the problem I felt was that the voting audience, they'd had 13 or 14 years of having to judge people based on a negative aspect. So much so that now that they have to do it through vote to save, through a positive means, they can't bring themselves to do it. And they create situations like the Liz situation by voting for her to feel like they've got the satisfaction of getting someone out.
Yeah, it goes back to the old casual mindset of I hate that person, get them off my TV, instead of thinking about, wow, okay, 3 weeks down the line the show will get really boring if I vote this person off, you know?
I totally agree. I mean, even with the eviction crowd, they're still chanting to get someone out.
Every week. Even if there's somebody who isn't necessarily the villain. If the villain's gone, they will pick somebody else because maybe they raised their voice that week against their favourite. So get them out, get them out. It's become a parody of itself, like the show itself in some ways.
And the eviction crowd as well, I almost feel it's very hypocritical in regards to gender, because Louisa, she's a bit gobby, she's a bit outspoken, gets booed to the rafters, and yet to have horse-punching homophobe Evander getting cheered.
Comes down to the viewing audience, doesn't it? And, yeah.
Real shame. But we are going to move on, though, and we're going to move on to the Huskies task, where once again, secret room time.
At least this one was ripping off a different evil era twist. This one was ripping off the other one they keep ripping off, which is the jail/luxury room one.
I mean, there were good aspects to it, but what I found particularly noticeable was there was this split between age lines, where you had a lot of the older housemates. We had the Liz, the Lindas, and the Jims pretty much on one side, having to live in the main house. And it was the younger housemates who were in the secret room, having to be the Huskies. And I noticed the younger room seemed to be having a lot more fun than what the older room was. There was this real awkward atmosphere amongst the older housemates, I felt, largely fueled by Jim and Linda.
Yeah, because both Jim and Appy did the I'm going to look amazing if I stand up for my principles and, say I'm not going to eat because of this, because they're not eating, and then that got up Linda's craw, and then this is where she became full on, like she thought she was going to be she thought she was the good guy in this situation, but this is where it sealed the nail in that coffin for her. This is where she became that Linda more than ever. I mean, she'd been in on Jim and on a Jim, but the time where she brought up the whole what was it, the eggnog, was it maybe? Yeah, about how they'd had wine or something, and they're we weren't going to tell them because of, and she made a whole scene about it, and it was pretty obvious, along with other conversations she'd had with especially Sam, that she was basically saying to the group, trying to alienate him and push herself up and push him out. And she's had several conversations with the group where she's like, I don't care if you're friends with him, but really, you shouldn't be friends with him, is essentially what the conversation came down to.
You brought me onto a good point, which was Linda's control of the house, because she really did take this house matriarch role, I felt. And I noticed that once she ended up leaving in a few weeks' time, the house atmosphere got a lot lighter, and a lot of opinions around Jim started to change. And I don't know whether it was that because of Jim being so popular, or whether it was because his influence was no longer there.
Yeah, and it was her. She was causing the arguments with Jim, no doubt. She was causing the situation with him, so there wasn't that constant bickering going on all the time. Plus, at the same time, for the younger ones, it's kind of like your mum and dad fighting all the time. And they really gravitated towards her as a mother figure. So, of course, if your mother figure is telling you all the time that, this person's a bastard, he's done this, he's done that, she's basically trying to program you against him, and that's kind of what happened. Then, as soon as she left, I mean, especially Louisa, was like, wow, you're not who she said you were.
And I felt as well that also played a part when it came to the nominations as well, where pretty much the entire house voted for Jim and Liz to be nominated. And they just threw some, what they considered tactical votes towards Sam being nominated. And there was a lot of uproar about that as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was like, how dare they vote tactically? That's not how this game should be played. All this while, she's sitting back there being, the captain of the ship, or trying to be.
It was interesting, that reaction towards Sam, because there was this real about Sam, and I mean, Sam did get criminally underrated and didn't do much to really attract the interest of the viewers, but everybody was really precious about it for some reason. Why do you think that was?
Because the mindset of the people in the house is the same as the mindset of the casual viewer sometimes. The people who are the nicest people to live with should be the people who win the show. It's not really how it works, but that's how some people think it works.
Which is a shame as well, because, as we say, nice housemates are usually some of the worst.
The best is when you get somebody that's really nice and also entertaining. That's when you have a real winner.
Oh, yes.
I mean, obviously you need the good villains in there as well, and they usually... But, oftentimes the people who are nice are just nice, and oftentimes they're not as nice as they're coming across as. They're just doing what their agent told them, especially in the celebrity case, to not say anything to piss anybody off because they want a deal coming out of this.
And I sort of got that impression, particularly with Sam as well.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that Sam really did hold back a lot of her own opinions because she was thinking a lot about what happens on the outside. Yeah,
it's become to the case that the show's been on the air so long now, they know. I mean, so many people like Lee should know better from it, but some people just are too savvy to it, and their agents are too savvy to it, and they know what not to do going in there, and what not to do apparently, and the public support this, because this happens all the time. I mean, look at who won the last series. Sam, if you have an opinion, if you speak up, all of a sudden you'll get chants, you'll get boos. Yeah, how dare they have anything to say or contribute to have an opinion? How dare they not just sit in the background and be funny?
But surely as well, if the housemates themselves are savvy about the Big Brother experience, about what to do and what not to do, why aren't the public the same? Why aren't the public thinking, well, we know from previous experiences that getting rid of people like that ruins the show?
Well, turnover probably is a big part of it, but also I think the show was based around, for so long, the show was based around this idea of get these villains out, the Grace thing, the Victor thing. For so long it was based around that I think fans who have stayed on from that era have kept with that. Some of them have kept that mindset, and then the younger people just vote with their emotions.
But we are going to move on to that eviction. It was Jim versus Sam versus Liz. And unfortunately, Liz's underdog run came to an end. She ended up being evicted that week. What a great housemate Liz was, though. And honestly, I never would have suspected on launch night that she would be this big star, because we'd had previous experiences of how tabloid housemates, be it Carol Malone, be it Samantha Brick, had always underwhelmed. They got all the hype through their articles and not really shown it in the house. Liz is the exception to that. I feel Liz really won over a lot of people. And as I mentioned before, I think that the casual viewer, which were maybe a bit indifferent towards her early on, really started to warm to her and her sort of personality.
Yeah, and I mean, she didn't have many moments, but then she had a couple of good moments, and then there was the hot tub moment, the bath moment. That was the one that really made people love her. Just to reset it for people, basically, the whole task was Louisa had to make everybody do something, and their job was to make them fail. Completely fail that task. So as soon as Louisa walked in there and started talking to her, she knew that Liz knew that her job, what Louisa was trying to do, is make her laugh. So as soon as she walked in there, she was like, "Oh, I was just thinking about my dead cat. Oh, maybe my husband's left me. Oh, do you think I could drown myself?" And it was the most classic.
If I was in a car, I'd crash it.
Yeah, again, it was just this deadpan. She kept a straight face. She never laughed, and it was Louisa's reaction, like, "Oh God, I came in here to make you laugh. What the fuck?"
Do you know who Liz reminded me of? Wednesday Addams.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of dark, downtrodden personality, really gloomy, but hilarious with it, though.
Yeah, that deadpan, cynicism. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And I mean, Liz has to be up there as one of the most underrated housemates, in my opinion.
Yeah, I towards the end, after that moment, it was like, yeah, she's awesome. Like, I don't know. It was just that way that she did that moment. It was just for a silly little task, and she went all out.
As I mentioned before, there's a lot of fans of Liz on the internet. She's developed this bit of a cult following, and it's easy to see why when you watch it back. So if there is anybody who never got Liz first time round, I suggest when you watch Celebrity 13 back, just keep an eye on her, because she was fantastic.
And she won't do much, but I mean, to me, just YouTube that task, and that you'll pretty much get why people enjoyed her.
We are going to move on though, and we're going to start focusing on Ollie and Sam somewhat, because they had stayed very much in the middle of house proceedings, not really wanting to take sides, being noted fence sitters, and they were actually given a fence sitting task to take part in. And I just want your opinions on Ollie and Sam and this middle status that they had, and particularly how production started to begin to make a point of them not taking sides.
Yeah, there was the whole controversy, wasn't there, about how he during the argument said something like how production had a go at him because he wasn't doing enough, and everybody was like, "Oh, well, they put him in the diary room and they said he's not doing it." And then the next day it was like, "Oh no, there was a task for this." I mean, that's pretty much production telling you you're being boring, but it wasn't them calling him into the diary room and saying, "You're being boring, do more," which some people portrayed it as, and still, I guess, to this day, believe that that's what happened. I guess, again, without live feed, we'll never know. But which is why these whole conspiracy theories start. Ollie thankfully got a personality. I mean, he had a bit of a one. He had the whole thing with Lionel, but later on, this middle portion, his entire storyline was he said he fancied Sam, so production were like on it. They were trying to get that working. They were trying to get her to reciprocate. They were trying to get that be the couple of the show after the Casey and Lee thing failed, and it just wasn't happening because she just was not going for it in any way, shape, or form. Because Ollie, he was great. He is, a very nice guy, but if you look at him and listen to him, he does not strike you as a heterosexual male person. So maybe just not Sam's type. And production just tried so hard. It became a focus of the show, and it was like, it's not happening. Give up. Jeez.
It was cringeworthy. Really, really was cringeworthy how desperate it was. But did you find it quite alarming, though, that production seemed to go so far as to call someone out for being boring? I mean, it was quite similar to what they did with Rachel Weisz in her series. Very critical on somebody who just seemed okay to be not take a side.
Anything that gets people moving. I mean, again, the fact that they did it during that series, who many people would consider to be one of the best series, I'm not one of them, but a lot of people do, shows that, it's not just Channel 5. Throughout the entire show, it's all been about making this the case, making the people who are not provide anything that gets them to provide content, especially on the celebrity show where they're being paid for this. You're not being paid to sit around, people.
And that brings us on to another Ollie-related incident, and really was the start of Ollie's big push to the run. I think production were aware that Jim was sort of running away with it, and were trying to build up competition for him. And I think that they started to do this with Ollie somewhat, and it brings me on to Louisa and Linda taking the mick out of him, and the sympathy vote that Ollie started to get from that.
Yeah, it was that moment where finally he had an opinion. Was it forced by that task? Probably. That entire situation was production and people telling him he's boring and sitting on the fence, and then people nominating him for the same reason. He finally was just like, okay, fine, I'll have an opinion. Even if I have to make one up, I'll force myself to have an argument almost. I mean, obviously he had a reason because they were being, catty, but
it did feel a bit theatrical though, and I don't know whether that's Ollie's personality or whether he had been told off. There did feel this sort of contrivance about him.
Yeah, it felt like they were taking a piss out of him for not having an opinion. Then he decided to basically show them he has an opinion by sort of forcing himself to have an opinion.
Did you buy into the idea of Ollie possibly winning after that? Because I know there was a lot of people who did sort of fear that.
I always thought he was a possibility just because he was a nice, good-looking male, which sometimes is enough for some of these people.
Sam.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've just never liked Sam. I know Sam has fans, he won the whole thing, but we've never been big.
Yeah, and it's a good comparison, because that's what happened with him. He did nothing for weeks, had an argument in the last 2 weeks, and somehow that won him the game.
We'll move on, though, to the eviction, and it was Jim, Louisa, Lee, Ollie and Linda who were nominated that week. People sort of called it as a three-way battle between Louisa, Lee and Linda, and it was Linda, the house matriarch, who ended up going. Now, we've already discussed Linda in some detail, particularly her relationship with Jim. On the whole, though, what did you think of her as a housemate? Do you think that she was one of the more... Do you think she was good as a villain? Because that's the only way you could really portray Linda on the show, was as a villainous aspect. But do you think there was some merits to her?
She saw herself as a mother figure of the house, but she was really more like the evil stepmother. That's the way that she came across later. She was vindictive. She was I tell you what she was. She was the ex-wife. She was Jim's ex-wife, and that's how she behaved in the house, to slander him and destroy him, and that was her mission in there. And as a result, she got herself kicked out for being that way, and then she completely showed herself up in the interview by being right. She was like, I don't want to spend this entire interview talking about Jim Davidson. All right. Yeah, she was just she made her whole experience about Jim, and then moaned when that's all people talked about when she came out. It's like, you caused that situation.
But was there anything away from Jim that you could point out about Linda? It's hard, isn't it?
She was... I can remember moments where she was occasionally fun in tasks, I guess, or she was sort of Sam's mother. I just... Other than that,
Struggling, aren't we? Do you think it crossed the line, her treatment with Jim? I mean, I understand the pre-show feuds, I understand the Frank Carson stuff probably wound her up a bit. It got a bit too far, though. I mean, I remember when she left the house, there was some sort of insinuations she was making about Jim, which got very personal, and I got very uncomfortable with her bringing it up. They were almost libelous.
Yeah, she had a vendetta against him, and that's why he brought up the dressing room thing, because what he meant to say, and what he didn't say in exact words, was, you hold a grudge against me because of that argument. That's what he meant to say. And that's pretty much, it's obvious that that's the case. he had an argument with her husband. She has had a thing against him ever since. Sure, he does have sexist opinions to back up that stuff, so people have sided with her. Finally, people sided against her, and she can't understand why.
Yeah, agreed, totally. And we go to something which was quite uneasy with a lot of people, and that's Jim's behaviour around Casey. And I don't know whether this was because people were trying to find any sort of fault with Jim because he was the big favourite and they wanted their favourites to win. But there were a lot of people who really got uncomfortable with some of the comments Jim made about her.
He was being her father figure for the most part. I mean, her mother went in there and said the same, you know? He was being a fatherly figure and occasionally teased her in a joking manner about that.
I think with some of the comments though, like bathing her, that just got a bit...
Yeah, but let's put it this way. It wasn't Steve with Keeley. I never saw the Jim thing as anything other than a fatherly figure to her, and I think anything else he said was in a joking manner, to me.
And another interesting relationship that Jim sort of had as well, in that sort of father-daughter thing, there was a father and son relationship between him and Dappy. Did you get that impression?
This one, I didn't hate Dappy throughout the show, but there's this strong... I hate those kind of I'm a gangster with an A type people anyway. So his whole thing when he went in I didn't like. Then I didn't like that he was getting cheered for no real reason just because he was Dappy. So I didn't like him going in. Then he just didn't do anything, and when he did do something he got into arguments with Louisa over stupid things and said some stupid comments. He was really funny in the arguments, unintentionally, because he was saying such stupid things like, you know, how intelligent he is to make an album and stuff, but and then by the time it got to this relationship it was nice and all, but part of me, knowing how conscious he was of his image,
yes.
How conscious he was not to say anything, how conscious he was to stay in bed all day to make sure he didn't do anything or say anything. You know, later on with the stupid task comment that don't put that on TV. I would not be shocked if he saw the way that the pendulum was swinging and latched onto those coattails.
Exactly my thought as well. We move on though, and we're going to move on to another recycled task, the grandfather clock.
It was probably the best version of it we've ever seen, just because of the content. They've done this so many times. It was the pause task. It was the ignore the obvious task. It was it was another reused one.
I think it was Don't Laugh.
Oh yeah, that was the
Don't Laugh in Big Brother 13, and I think they did it in Big Brother 12, which was Don't Get Scared.
Yeah, every year they do a different version of it. Now it's become the, as you said, the American, the Zingbot or whatever the hell every
Zingbot.
week. Yeah, every year they have this now. But the obviously the best moment was when Jasmine walked in.
Absolutely amazing. And I felt that was I always like to look at the show in terms of storylines, and for me, Jasmine coming back into the show, it was a great way of wrapping up her storyline, Casey's storyline, Lee's storyline, especially considering Lee went the day afterwards. But that was fantastic entertainment.
Yeah. Say what you want about her going back in. It's not like she could, but they did not even try during that task.
No.
Everybody's family went in, they reacted, they hugged them, and then honestly, by the time it got to the fifth person whose family member came in, I was just like, screw it, just say hello to him. Everybody else has, and then of course it got to that thing with Jasmine, and they literally, like, Lee just started having a conversation with her, and Casey joined in, and it became a whole argument. It was if they hadn't have failed that task, I would have, like, if you know how they used to open the envelope and it's like you're allowed 90,000 fails. It was like, oh, seriously. So yeah, if they had not failed it this time, come on. Jeez.
And one part of the grandfather task was Emma entering the house. Of course, ignore the obvious, you have to ignore Emma. And then Lee gets told he's evicted. And this brings up Lee Ryan in these assessments, because I have to be honest, Lee was probably my least favourite contestant of that series. I just felt he was so sleazy, slimy, and more than anything, immature with it as well. I felt that a bigger person would have admitted he was in the wrong over a lot of the situations Lee created. But in nearly every situation, something was always someone else's fault. He blamed Casey, He blamed Jasmine. He blamed the crowd. He blamed the editors. Nothing was ever his fault, and it annoyed me. Also with the fact that he was just a sleazy scumbag as well, flirting with all the women.
Yeah, his whole thing was he never owned anything he did. He did something, then was like, oh shit, that might look bad. Let me now say, oh, this whole situation's been created by production. This whole situation's been created by Casey. No, pal, this whole situation was created by you going between the two.
Exactly. He should have claimed responsibility and never did.
And not only did he eventually may have said, okay, I'm sorry, but then as soon as he went back in the house, he was telling everybody else, oh, I didn't do anything. And then, first chance he got, did it again.
Exactly.
It was ridiculous. Like, it just, for somebody of his age, I think he would have learned, but he just, whether it was self-destructive, I don't know whether he just didn't care, but he felt like, I'm doing nothing wrong. I mean, it's not illegal, but I mean, seriously, if you can't look at the way you were going, hopping, like, even after Jasmine left and you went back to Casey, it's like, how can you not think that is bad? How can you not see their point of view?
To be fair, there has been a lot of previous with Lee Ryan. Because he even mentioned in the house, wasn't there something that he said about 9/11, which got a lot of people riled up?
Yeah, again, he brought up his whole gambling past and how he went into strip clubs and all this stuff when he was big. I think he's another guy who went there to resolve his tabloid image, and dear God, he gave them material for a lifetime.
Oh, he's ruined it. To be honest, I think had he have come across much better, I think there could have been a chance for Lee Ryan to redeem himself. But I think he's damaged goods from now on.
He's, and the fact that this series was so big because of his and more people were watching than ever before, it's almost a George Galloway situation. It's like people will remember, oh yeah, the Channel 5 Celebrity Big Brother, oh yeah, that's the one where Lee Ryan screwed around.
We come to the finale though, and I don't know about you, it felt like a bigger finale for me this year, because that's one of the big faults I've had with the Channel 5 era, is that they don't make enough of a big deal about it. I felt this was one of the few times that they, I wouldn't say got it right, but it was definitely better than what they did with previous years.
Couple more sparklers. Yeah.
The fireworks displays are terrible.
Yeah, my God, I've seen better firework displays at carnivals down the road. Apparently it's something to do with they were saying, oh, the neighbourhood were complaining because of the fireworks and stuff. Bollocks, you just can't afford them. It's hard for me to ever like seeing those old big stages with the huge crowds and the giant firework display. If it's knowing that they once had that, nothing is good. I mean, it had the big time feel, definitely more than any others did, but then when they come out and they've just got the confetti and a couple of Roman candles, it's like it's just not the big show that it was, and perception is reality. Just up your game a little bit and make it feel special. Spend a bit of money.
And invite Evander Holyfield back. He didn't even bother turning up.
Yeah, did he just go back to America?
I think so.
That keeps happening on these Channel 5 ones. They're not as strict about keeping them for the finales.
But we come to the finale night, and in 6th place is Casey Batchelor. Now, Casey was a big part of the major storyline of the series, which was Lee, her, and Jasmine. And I felt, in a strange way, Casey had a lot of the ingredients to give herself a good post-Lee storyline. She'd been wronged, he'd been the scumbag. She could have played that absolutely brilliantly. Almost like, if you remember Sophie Reid in Big Brother 10, it was quite similar to her in how Chris had been the scumbag. She bounced off that and ended up getting the win. And Casey had the opportunity to do that and never took it. And I don't think she ever recovered from going back to Lee. No,
you kind of lose sympathy for somebody if they go back for more, yeah.
And it's a shame as well, because she was a likeable girl, in my opinion.
She was a nice, down-to-earth, likeable girl, but her problem was that she fancied Lee Ryan a bit too much.
Which is a real shame as well, because I did think there was a lot of winner potential there when her storyline started to come through, and she just never took it. I think there have been better unknown models. I think people have done that. I think Danica Frall, absolutely amazing. And Casey maybe doesn't live up to that standard, but she was a nice, pleasant personality. and a good addition to the show, in my opinion.
She was a personality, which is more than you could say for Sam, who was an actress.
Yes, and it would bring me on to Sam. Now, Sam's the fourth Towie contestant that we've had on this show. We've had Amy, we've had Kirk, Mario, and now her. And in all 4 occasions, Towie members have come in with lots of hype, lots of hysteria, and just absolutely failed to deliver. And why do you think that is? Do you think there's something fundamentally flawed with Towie contestants on the show? Do you think are they too conscious? Are they just actors?
Because everything they are on that show is fabricated. Everything they are on that show is rehearsed. Everything they do on that show, not rehearsed so much as set up. It's constructed reality. That isn't their real personalities. That is them being that personality for that TV show the producers tell them to be. When they have to be themselves, it's like an actor. When an actor's go in there, unless they're a real personality, it's just them. They're just normal people who play a part. And I think because they use that word reality in constructed reality, I think some people expect when they go in there that they're going to be the person they are on that show.
But then again, you can make the argument, though. You say it's constructed reality, but then you see how well Ollie did earlier this year and how Ollie won over a lot of people. And then you look at Charlotte winning Celebrity 12.
Well, I think the shows are different. I think that I think Ollie actually was in spite of because his reputation on the show was a negative one, and that he went in and proved that he was a nice guy. So again, he proved that he wasn't who he was on the show, at least at this point of his life. And as far as Charlotte goes, I think Geordie Shore is a little more Big Brother-y and a little more reality. So, yeah. But as far as Towie and Mary and Chelsea goes, it's completely everything that they are on that show for the most part is producers.
Do you understand, though, possibly some of the reasons why Towie members get cast onto the show? I mean, because they do bring in the tween audience, and from what I gather as well, they're quite cheap to hire.
Yeah, it's the crossover. They're like, oh, this is the same audience that watch Towie now. That gets 500 more people watching it than we get. So bring them on.
I did hear some stories, though, that Sam was suffering from illnesses, especially later on in the series. Do you think that maybe played a part in it being a bit underwhelming?
That's what she said, yeah.
You started yawning there. Is that how interesting Sam is?
I don't know. It's just more being tired than anything. But yeah, I don't know if she would have been anything more. I don't think the Ollie thing would have happened. I know that much.
Well, we'll happily move on from Sam, and we're coming up to someone who was far more interesting and far more entertaining on the show, and that's Louisa. I can't think of any other celebrity housemaid, in my opinion, that has been more specially made for Big Brother than what Louisa was. Everything about her just fit. She could have been on the civilian version of the show and been an absolute standout. She was contradictory, she was flirtatious, she was argumentative, she wore her heart on a sleeve, and she brought so much entertainment with it. And it's scary to think she could have very easily gone home first.
You take, Jasmine from this series, and you take, as I said, a Nikki Graham, and you take a Grace, and you put them together and you get Louisa. Now, those are 3 pretty freaking awesome. You've got somebody who doesn't care what people think about them. There's somebody who's really funny when they talk, and there's somebody who is willing to do anything on the show because she doesn't give a shit. That's the best that they can possibly be. What it comes down to, this show is entertaining when people are fighting or people are fucking. Okay, feel free to beat that one. But yeah, that's what this show comes down to. That's when the show is at its best, because that's really life. Life is all about conflict, or life is all about conquest of sexual desires. And this being a microcosm of life, those are the 2 most interesting points of life. So of course, those are the 2 most interesting points of the show. So if somebody provides that in spades, they're the best person. Plus, and then being really entertaining on top of that. She was probably one of the best of the celebrities ever.
And to be honest, I'd agree with you. I think Louisa is definitely a top 10 celebrity housemaid, in my opinion. Just everything about her, just that entertainment value that she brought. Just there was also a lot of complexity to her. I did think, though, at points, though, because Louisa sold herself as a strong, independent, feminist woman. Yet in my eyes, it was just an excuse for her to sleep around.
Yeah. She admitted she went to those orgy parties and stuff. And she said she was a nymphomaniac, didn't she, or something?
But absolutely fantastic. Any great Louisa moments for you? Any standout moments in particular?
Oh God, all the arguments, the thing with Dappy, the thing with the Vanda, the arguments of Jim, you miserable bastard. But probably the most annoying room where she was just climbing over that fence and just being like, "Oh, do you want some chocolates?" Yeah, that was probably where she was at her best.
Well, we move on. Louisa unfortunately misses out on third place. That goes to Ollie Locke. And we sort of touched on this just a few minutes ago about Ollie and his sort of development into a character. He was arguably one of the less relevant housemates of the series in terms of the storylines he got himself into. But I did think he showed himself in a good way in spite of that. Mm-hmm. I think that had he have had a stronger storyline away from the Sam Showman's tent, I think he could have been a good winner. He could have been a winner I would have been happy with.
I think that he's the best type of nice guy on the show. He's the nice guy who also has something else about him and is fun to watch. Sometimes when he's doing that, he's not just wallpaper.
And that was the fear I did have with Ollie, especially when he went really under the radar early on in the series. But by the time that a lot of those personalities like the Lindas and like the Lizzes and the Lionels went away, Ollie did start to come out of his shell a lot more and started to show a lot more personality. And in some ways, though, I was happy with Ollie because he did deliver that. But at the same point, though, I expected this Ben Duncan type figure for him on launch night. I honestly thought he was going to be hilarious.
Yeah, I think it was also people were expecting a kind of Brian Dowling type thing from him as well, and just that kind of, that kind of camp guy who's really funny and quippy, and he kind of wasn't that.
Then we come to our final two, which is Dappy versus Jim. We mentioned their attempt at a father-son relationship, or how it was perceived by the editors. Of course, Jim ends up winning, which means we have to talk about our runner-up, Dappy. And obviously, the producers edited this in the way that they want to. You can make the argument from the editor's point of view. Dappy arguably went on one of the best journeys of the house.
Yeah, he was a nice enough guy when he came out, and he was the Ashleen of this series, wasn't he?
That I think that's what production wanted him to be. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the issues that I had with Dappy, and you sort of brought it on, there was this real air of contrivance over his journey.
Yeah.
He became very cynical about how the public perceived him and clambered onto Jim. I mean, that stuff about Jim being his father figure to him, that just felt very contrived in my opinion. Because we saw early on in the series, Dappy wasn't this sweet-natured boy by the end of the show. There was this arrogant, idiot-type character. And it's been shown by some of the actions he's got up to outside the house. Do you know what it was for me? If I had to compare him to Housemate, his story was almost a bit like Frankie Kokoza in Celebrity 9, but much more deliberate on the part of Dappy than it was with Frankie.
Yeah, I think he was told what to do, he was told what not to do, and he followed that to a T to portray himself as a nice guy so that he could... he admittedly said it in the house. He was there to wipe away his image in the press. So,
do you think he did?
Yes, but until he got back out there and people realised, well, it's just an old act then.
And so now we come to the final housemate that we have to discuss about, and this is the one where either Digital Spy lynches us or applauds us, and that's when we talk about Jim Davidson, who I believe actually became the oldest winner in Big Brother history worldwide by taking this victory. Jim's a strange one for me because, as I mentioned before, I like to judge the show based on stories. And in my opinion, if you watch the show in the way you would a scripted drama, if you watch a scripted drama, you want the ending to try and be symbolic of the 13 or 14 weeks of the show you previously watched. And you wouldn't feel satisfied if you had an ending which was just purely random. In the same way, the central story of the series was Jim versus Linda and Louisa. And in my opinion, one of those three needed to win. And in that regard, I'm okay with Jim as a winner. What I'm not okay with, though, was Jim being shown as the protagonist.
He became the protagonist because of the victim thing, because Linda was such a bitch. So he came off so much better. He was a grumpy sod in the beginning. He was, they showed him from all angles, all multidimensional of what he was, and then he became the victim, and then he became the favourite, and then, as you mentioned, some of this started to get. It all became all about nice Jim. Then at that point, so there was some of that, but to me, I think he's just a stuck in the mud older guy who has some old-fashioned non-PC opinions, but he's harmless. He's not any of the things that Ambrose said he is. He is just a middle-aged, grumpy old bastard who went in there to have some money and have a bit of back in the spotlight to kind of, as we brought up, a Michael Barrymore type thing of redemption after what happened the year before when he didn't go in because of. So it basically, he had that angle coming from it. It was like he came in here and he was wrongfully accused and he wanted to redeem himself, and he did. He probably should give Linda half of if he got any sort of prize, because she gave him the win by making him the victim. But I was happy with it. If either him or Louisa won, I was happy, because those two were the show. So that they deserved to win, and he deserved to win. He wasn't all nice, but I'd rather hang around with him than hang around with her. That's for damn sure.
Well, I'd rather hang around with Louise for completely different reasons.
Oh, not Louisa, I mean Linda.
Oh, okay, yeah. And it brings me on to the question, how well do you think Jim would have done had Linda not have been there? Because Linda, as you mentioned, was the fuel to the rocket ship that took Jim to the victory.
I think he would have been a so-so guy. He would have offended people with some of his comments and would have got kicked out in the middle.
And it just shows how the cards need to fall in the right way for you to benefit in this show. Because as you mentioned before, Jim without Linda doesn't do anything.
Yeah. So basically go in there, be a nice person. You can do whatever you want in the first couple of weeks, but piss everybody off, make everybody go against you and make yourself the underdog and the victim, you'll probably win.
Do you think Jim possibly did that cynically? Because Jim...
No, I didn't mean it. He did it deliberately. I'm just saying...
Oh.
From the Deaners to the, this, it's obvious that works.
Do you think, though, that maybe Jim, because Jim was on public recovery mode, as it were, do you think that maybe he did make himself the underdog to benefit somewhat?
I don't know why he would bring that on. I don't think he made himself the underdog. I think Linda made him the underdog. I don't think he would deliberately turn everybody against him, no.
So we talked about all the housemates. Jim Davidson's been our victor. Is that the crowning glory on Celebrity 13? What did you think of the series on the whole?
I thought it was an extremely entertaining series. Probably it was definitely the best celebrity series since the good old days. It was, in my opinion, it was everything that has kind of been getting better and better about these ones, but just to a T. Like, it didn't matter about how overused the tasks were. It didn't matter how tacky the editing was. It was just good Big Brother. Good Big Brother. You couldn't put it any better. And it's going to... I'm really feeling sorry for the Celebrity 14 housemates who are going to have to follow it. But unfortunately, though, that is all that we've got time for. I've had great fun having to talk about this series, and I'm sure you have as well, Karl. Yeah. I mean, I'm the type of person that has a load of opinions on anything, so I do apologise if I put people to sleep when I go off on one sometimes, but I do have opinions on things, and it's nice to be able to voice them.
Same here, and I've really enjoyed making this show, and thank you for waiting so long for us to get this one uploaded. But that is it for this latest episode of Big Brother's Big Archive. My name's been Karl Bainbridge. That's been Mr. Karl Dutton.
Thank you very much, everybody.
And Joseph Tilley will be joining us for our next podcast, which hopefully will be Big Brother 7. Until then, though, it's bye-bye for now.